Welcome to Talking Tactics, a podcast that gets you results. Each episode features a single tactic, implemented with limited resources, that move the needle in some way. I'm your host, Day Kibbles, Vice President of Strategy at Ology, a marketing and branding agency for education. Join me every other week for discussions with some of the most clever folks in higher ed worldwide, doing the work day to day, just like you. Talking Tactics is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, a leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Check them out at element451.com. Dear gentle listeners, hello. Welcome back to Talking Tactics. I feel like I had to start that with a Bridgerton hello because I really miss Bridgerton and I really need the next season to come out. Anyways, I'm your host, Day Kibbles, and with me today is Shannon Hess, the Director of Content and Communications at the Mitch Daniels School of Business at Purdue, which I will from this point forward call Purdue Business. Shannon started a prospective graduate student blog and saw an increase of 425 non-branded ranking keywords. That's incredible. 680 more website sessions per month and over 400 new website visitors per month. So she's here to tell us all about it so you can do it too. Welcome to the show, Shannon.
Hey, Day. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Did you like my Bridgerton thing at the start?
I don't watch Bridgerton.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So I'm not familiar with the phrase.
It's dear gentle reader, but dear gentle listener was my adaptation. So
I love it.
More than anything, sorry for the Bridgerton side note here. This was not planned. I don't know what got into me. It's beautiful. Like the show is visually striking. So like if you're into that, just looking at pretty things, I recommend it. Okay.
Yeah, I know my parents and family have gotten into it. I'm just the lagger, the one who hasn't jumped in yet.
But you know what? When you do, you're going to get all the seasons at once, you lucky. Okay. Enough Bridgerton talk. Let's talk about this blog. Let's start back at the beginning. Can you situate us in what you were seeing and experiencing that you wanted to solve?
Yeah. So I just passed 3 years with the business school at Purdue. So when I came in, I noticed from a tactical perspective that we were missing a part of the journey. We weren't capturing a part of that prospective graduate student journey. So we had and we still have a solid middle funnel consideration content, a robust outbound digital advertising campaigns. But it was that top of funnel, that organic SEO that we didn't really have a lot of traction, a lot of content for. I will say the school and our individual programs had some traction, but nothing really coordinated and nothing that answered those top of mind questions for someone who's just starting their journey to go to grad school. Like, why would you want to choose business over this? Or why would you want to choose online versus in person? So nothing that really answered that. So that's what we were trying to solve. Some of my previous experience at a inbound marketing agency told me over the couple years that from organic search, those students are the most likely to convert. They're the higher, value kind of student through that journey. So I felt it was necessary that we added that, to our strategy.
So there's so many things that you said that I just love hearing. First of all, the clarity about the funnel and what kind of tactics help when, but also when you think about a graduate prospective student, right? A lot of their decision to go back to school is a lot less inertia or momentum than a traditional undergraduate prospective student, right? They're making a choice to go to school, whereas your typical 17, 18-year-old is, I'm going to go to school, right? It's just where. So the content of why this subject or why even go back is sorely missing. So I totally agree. That's so exciting. All right. So you identified this need. How did you come up with the idea to use a blog to fill in this gap?
Yeah. So we went with a blog to build really an area of the website that is, program agnostic. It's more about the persona. It's more about the student coming to us versus us feeding the program information to them. So working with our web director, we felt a blog was the right place for that. It's in the graduate section of the website, like above all the programs, and can connect to those next steps. So if you read about a particular topic that's, accounting related, it could connect you to the accounting website, but you're brought in by a question like, why would you want to be an auditor? What's that type of career path for you? So that helped us where we could have a central place to drive traffic from that high level. And then from there, direct the journey, the next step to those individual programs that they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, I think blogs do give content creators so much freedom, right? There's you don't have to worry so much about the site hierarchy and things like that. You just publish.
Yes.
Yeah. And then how the amazing that how that content can be used in other channels too. So we'll get into that. All right. So once you decided it was going to be a blog, and once you clearly identified this top of funnel need, walk us through the steps it took to actually stand this up and make it happen.
Yeah. So the first thing that I did was connect with our web director to see how we make this happen from a functional standpoint. That way, if he needed to build something or figure out what that looked like, we could simultaneously work with our content specialist on our SEO research, building out some topic clusters, which actually aligned really well. So our web team found out we already had some sort of homegrown system that could just be adapted. So it wasn't as big of a heavy lift as I expected. I thought it might need to be a new CMS or an addition or something. So that was really nice. And then, we could do simultaneous searching through SEMrush of what are we currently getting traction on that we would want to continue to build off of. So we actually ended up starting with connecting our curriculum to careers or backtracking from those career questions. Like I mentioned, that one about, being an auditor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And connecting that back. So that's where we started. And we've seen some really great traction there. And I think it's a little helpful too, you might think of accounting, but what does that really mean? Our program is strong in tax and fraud and audit. So we can get a little bit deeper into those specifics.
Right. So one of the things that important lessons here in what you just said is always talk to your stakeholders, your teams, your IT. You have to be friends with your IT people.
Yes, for sure.
If you are friends with them, they will find solutions for you. Yeah. So, all right. I'm really interested in this kind of how you found topics idea. You mentioned SEMrush. So doing some research in what you already attracted folks for, but what else? How else did you come up with what topics? And can you give us some examples of those topics or the first ones that you started with?
Yeah. So we started, I think for whatever reason, I was like, there's so many places you can start. So I just narrowed in on the curriculum, particularly our concentration areas or track areas. Because like I said, with accounting, there's all those, there's tax, there's fraud, there's forensics. And then within our finance, there's fintech and wealth management. So I was thinking of if I was someone wanting to look for a career, I probably wouldn't say a finance. I might know more specifically, I want to be an investor or something. So that's just a first pass that we went on. And I took our URLs, put those in SEMrush to see am I actually on the right track? Is that actually something that's happening? And then we dove into the questions, the queries that come up that are related, any other tangential keywords that we could build off of to create that whole topic cluster for that. And then once we did that for one, it was nice to replicate that for the rest of the programs. So we have equitability across who we're giving attention to and who's kind of seeing, new content published about them. And then we're going to switch it up. Student experience is another one, transformational experiential learning. Kind of go from there and follow that same format. That was really nice to get a process down and then go from there.
I got to ask, did you use AI to help you with this or do you have a plan to?
We do have a plan. I'd say not so much in the search just yet. I'm trying to figure that out. But when it gets to the creation part, what we're working on is centralizing a trained tool that is our persona. Right now, a couple of our writers are using their own individual tools, whether it's Perplexity or ChatGPT or Copilot. So instead of everyone having their own, having a central one we can use, that's all building off of each other. So we know we're talking to the right persona, have that right tone for our school. So we're figuring that out right now, but haven't done it too much just yet.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, when you talked about like clustering and like the different questions someone could ask, like I definitely can imagine asking one of these tools, like, what kind of questions might someone interested in finance ask? And that might be a good
Right.
starting point. Yeah. You mentioned personas a few times. What are your personas? How do you organize your content in that way?
Yeah, particularly for the blog where we're thinking that high level, we've bucketed more by if they're a career launcher. So that's like your undergrad, right to grad school kind of pathway. If they're a career advancer, so making that decision to come back to advance their career and however that looks, because then that could help us span our graduate certificates, executive education, not just full master's programs. We also have career changers. I've noticed that picking up a lot of individuals wanting to make a shift. And that's why they're seeking that online education so they can figure out what that path looks like and still have their current career while they're trying to switch into a new one. So those are kind of the main ones that we're working on right now. And then have, customer buyer personas more specifically for each program after that.
Yeah. So you folks at Purdue have always been really smart about this stuff, but man, I love hearing about a motivation-based persona. It is especially for grad school where so many grad schools get stuck in the like marketing by program nightmare that just destroys your resources. Yes, you need to do some of that, but like somebody who is a career advancer might not necessarily be looking for a very specific program. They're just looking for the next thing, right? And this allows you to like optimize your budget so well. So kudos to you. Everybody
Thank you.
Take note. Okay. So all of this is sounding great so far, but let's talk about how you write and like that workflow process. You said something earlier that is very higher ed. How do we make sure everyone feels like they're getting the attention they think they deserve? So talk to me about your workflow. And do you interview experts? Do you have an in-house writing team? Do you consult? Like, what does that look like? And how do you make it easy for yourselves?
Yeah. So we have a writing team of 3 full-time writers. We're really fortunate too that other team members have journalistic backgrounds. So when needed to be, we can expand that a little bit, myself included. How we kind of separate that is each writer has a domain. So to help them get a deep knowledge. So we have one in particular who's focused on the grad blog who would initially be assigned all of these tasks as they come in. And she works very closely with a handful of interns. So we are very grateful to have a robust intern program, could be up to 30 interns at a time. So that's been really helpful and a really nice training experience for them. And they're the ones then going out interviewing, for the most part, students right now, because we want to have that student perspective. So the blog could be more of a student talking to a student about their experience and less as the school being the authority on it. And we have a separate blog now called Daniel's Insights, where that's more of our faculty driven, research driven stories. So there is definitely some overlap and wanting to serve the purpose of SEO, but back it up with, I've just been calling it like our social proof for, here's the research, but here's what people are saying at our school or about our school to drive that home.
Yeah, that's like just checking so many boxes, right? Student voice, SEO, real content, like awesome. Okay. And is there an approval process? Is there does it have to go through an editor? I'm asking this because I have trauma. I have trauma from the days I had to write and like 4 people had to approve it and everybody changed it. So how does that work for you?
Yeah. So we do have an editing process. So like I said, we'll have the main writer and then kind of assigned editor for that area too, just to help with a workload perspective of knowing, okay, this person is the writer for grad and this person's the editor for grad. And then we'll do the same thing for like undergrad and for our reputation at Daniel's Insights blog. In terms of approval, it's mostly been internal to our Marcom team so far. We do run a few things when we're getting into the weeds. Or for example, for our new Masters of Business and Technology program, we featured their advisory board in a webinar that we turned into a blog. And so that was one that we took a little bit more care. These are high level VPs and directors at big companies and want to make sure we don't do anything to tamper their reputation or something like that. So, depending on the content, when it's more of that student to student,
Yeah.
we can kind of move forward, but
pretty light. Yeah. So that's a great tip, folks. If you think approvals might be a challenge for you, student to student, it's the way to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So far things are sounding pretty easy. What have you learned along the way? Have you faced any challenges?
Yeah, I'll say consistency is probably a challenge from a total workload perspective. So we do very well. I think our goal was to do 2 a month. Like, let's see if we can do that. I think the biggest challenge comes with the intern management part. If they need a little bit more handholding or a little bit more advising, then that could take a little time. We also, for better or worse, have really ambitious students who are doing lots of things at once. So, managing that and how they keep on their deadlines. So it's just kind of training them on that. I think another challenge that we talked about earlier is that equity. So if some academic directors or program directors start to see one over the other, then there's a little question of why. It's as much as we want it to be equitable, and I'll plan a couple months of like, let's rotate between each program or each, topic cluster. I do my best to do adjustments based on our dean's priorities as well. So that kind of influences how everything gets published. So
like any good content strategist, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine the fact that it is students and their workloads are pretty wild, especially graduate students who have probably a job on top of this, right?
Right.
Are your interns undergrads or grad students?
They are mostly undergrads. We have employed more graduate students within our MarTech vertical, so helping with like Salesforce and Marketing Cloud. But for our content, it's mostly undergrad right now.
Cool. Awesome. That's great experience for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So earlier in the episode, I hinted at all these amazing results you've seen. And now folks are like, okay, I think I can do this. Now talk to me about these numbers. What has changed since you implemented the blog?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's changed is knowing, okay, in the grand scheme of things, we weren't doing too bad from an SEO perspective, but it wasn't, like I said, coordinated. And as I'm looking at the whole site in SEMrush as like random keywords or certain faculty over others, and we don't really have a rhyme or reason why that's happening. So knowing that, I was bummed to see this, but it's, hey, every little increment you get. It's like this blog has contributed 3% in the last, like 8 months. So that doesn't seem like a lot, but that's 3% we wouldn't have had before. And it's much more coordinated and connected directly to the journeys and to our enrollment goals. Whereas, sure, we could say we're getting traction over here on this word, but like, what does that mean? We're not really tracking it. It doesn't really influence that bottom line. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the most interesting things that you shared is that a lot of these words, like over 400 of them, are non-branded keywords.
Right.
So that's game changing, right? Because this is essentially free leads.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Free, highly qualified, highly motivated leads. Yeah.
Right. And I guess that's also a challenge too, now that you bring that up, is explaining how something that doesn't say Purdue, something that doesn't say the Daniel School of Business, why that's worth our time and why that's something we continue to pursue. So telling that story of how it's growing that reach, and then again, high quality, the student is searching for that, finding us, and then moving on to those next steps versus us putting it in their face and then, okay, it'll take,
click this ad right now.
Right. And then it takes, a year longer or maybe never for them to convert.
Yeah, exactly. So what have you found are the highest performing keywords or topics since you started?
Yeah, I'm looking over here on my other screen of our latest deep dive. So we have the top couple are directly kind of related to where we started, like I said, with the careers and the concentrations within our program. So you might not think something like, what does commercialization mean, has anything to do, with the business school or finding a degree, but that's helping someone understand we have a specific technology commercialization concentration in our Master's of Business and Technology. And we were able, in that case, that was a nice companion one to a webinar where we had an expert internally who helps with startups and taking an idea to market. And so helping to show our expertise and reputation in that area. That's one of our top performing ones. That auditor one, should you become an auditor, it's only been published for a few months and it rose. It's like number 3. It's the top one. So that also helps tell us like, hey, maybe this is a career that's growing. There's a lot more interest. What more can we do with that?
Yeah. I mean, and like think about how this data could be used to help also your program directors make decisions about
yes, for sure.
What to hire, what courses to add, or that's incredible. Are you using the blogs in email or social too?
Yes. So we do have a process to, when they're posted, they're added to a list for our social media manager to add into the schedule. We have a high volume of the blog, so she doesn't post every single one, but we try to get those out there as another source to drive traffic to them. And we do work with our marketing cloud specialists to do an audit like once a quarter. So as we're reviewing those emails, which ones are either high performing and we want to, keep refining, or the ones that we maybe want to make adjustments to so they can grow better. Like that's where we'll feed these into the journey.
Well, do you have any final words of advice for anyone who might want to start a graduate blog?
Oh boy. I think it can seem like a lot, and I just had to remind myself, like, take it one piece at a time, starting with that conversation with Webb of how to do the actual implementation and the tech behind it. Like, I'm glad I didn't have to do that because that would have made it a lot longer. And then whether you have the resources to have a SEMrush, there's other free tools. Like how can you search those? And I think that's where AI, to your point, could come in, because you don't necessarily have to pay for any of that right now. And it could, help you spit out the same information. So just one step at a time. And also that SEO, as a reminder, is a long game. So we are very, very blessed that it happened quickly. I have to say, if, maybe we were at a different institution or a different domain, it might not have happened as quickly. So I'm thankful for that, but every little bit helps. And over time, it'll make a big difference.
Yeah. And it definitely makes a difference, the person that read it and help them make a decision.
Yes.
Yeah. So I understand you'll be speaking about this topic at a conference or two. Give yourself a plug. Where are you going to be?
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. So I will be at the Case District 5 conference in Chicago, and that's the end of March, early April. And my content specialist, Maria Weir, who is head of the editorial calendar for this grad blog, will be there with me. And then I also did just get an acceptance for a lightning talk at the EDU Digital Summit in July. So I believe that's up in May.
Very nice.
So I haven't done a lightning talk before, so I'm excited for that.
I think this was good practice, though we probably went too long for lightning, but
yeah, condensing it to 15 minutes is,
yeah. Maybe less Bridgerton references might help. Don't talk about Bridgerton.
Yeah.
If folks want to contact you, Shannon, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'd say the best place is LinkedIn. That's where I'm at more professionally. Instagram is a lot more lifestyle if you're interested in that, but say LinkedIn for sure.
Start with LinkedIn, become friends, then Instagram. I think that's
right, exactly.
Good approach. All right. Well, that's the end of our episode today. To our listeners out there, remember to follow and subscribe to keep walking the walk and talking the tactics. The Talking Tactics podcast is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions pros find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's bests as your hosts, like Jamie Hunt, Allison Tercio, Jenny Lee Fowler, Jeremy Tears, and so many of your other favorite leaders in higher ed too. And Rollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Check them out at element451.com.